Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And the workshop is also recording. So once again, good morning, everyone. Good morning to the Dominican writers. Milan. Today, your facilitator will be Eli Villaman. Eli, I am going to leave and I will leave it up to you. And you could close the salon when you end. Okay?
Okay. Thank
All
you,
right.
Angie.
Have a good workshop, guys. Bye. Text me if anything. Okay?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here, and I know we are going to enjoy and also write. I know you usually write with prompts, but first I'm going to talk about the topic of today, and then we will do as normally, okay? And you can ask me questions as well. Let me just open the screen. One moment. Okay, can you all see the screen? Yes? Amazing.
Yes.
Well, welcome to this workshop, Writing a Personal Narrative Universe. As Angie said, my name is Eli Villaman. Those are my accounts of social media, Escribir Soy, which is my personal project with writers, and Eli Villaman, which is my personal account. So you can contact me and know more about my work. And I want to, before I start sharing my ideas, I want to know, what do you think is a personal narrative? What do you think that means for you when you listen to that? Who wants to share any thoughts or ideas?
El cuento de mi vida. That's my personal narrative.
Okay, exactly. It could be my personal story. What else? I want to listen to other opinions. Thank you, Rosita.
For me, it sounds more like when the author is saying the story from their own perspective. I don't know if that's called like
Very,
writing from first person or third person. I don't remember very well.
yeah, very good. Is having a specific perspective to tell a story. Very good. Jackie?
I see it like now, like synthesizing something from your experience. But now that I get to a certain point in my life, I'm thinking that like we have to be more intentional about our narratives because like sometimes when you repeat the same story over and over, especially like trauma and sadness, it do something to you. So I'm learning to reshape narrative. Like first it was like just keep telling that story, but I'm learning now to like synthesize it into something that's going to benefit me and not harm me because we get into that habit, right? And just keep telling and telling. And it's like learning to be intentional and synthesizing what we say and to make it make sense to our life versus just saying anything. Because words are harmful sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for that, Jackie. And yes, it's about experience, but it's how we use that experience and which elements of my life I'm going to take and also create a story. So thank you for sharing. I will go again. Let me see. Share. Okay. Okay. So, yes, basically is the recognizable way a writer perceives reality, chooses language, builds emotional space, and returns to the same underlying questions across different stories. We usually talk about certain topics in a certain way. We have certain characters, spaces, and also, we have a language, the way we speak, the way we connect with other people. And especially as Dominicans or Dominican Americans, we have a specific way of connecting. So it's very important that as writer, we create that universe because that's what will give you the opportunity to connect with the reader. So in that way, it will help you first to understand why you keep writing about the same things. Like Jackie said, we usually talked about the same topics. So it's important to recognize, like, why do I care about this and how I can do it in many different ways that I don't repeat myself, but I can also connect with a certain community that I want to speak. It makes your writing feel more honest, like it's yours, it's your own perspective, your own idea, your own experience. And it also explains what kind of a story only you can tell. Because I know at the beginning, maybe you like many topics, but it helps you find, like, what is my topic? What I really want to talk about. And of course, you can talk from different ideas and ways, but first, to connect with readers and to have a community, it's good to specify in one. And then when you have that community, you can start opening from many layers. And it creates, of course, as I said, the a strong connection with the reader because it understand what are you talking about. So before we start with the writing prompts, I'm going to talk about how you can find this universe of your writing. First, as some of you said, perspective is the way you tell a story, is how you look at something when you enter a room, when you talk to someone, what comes up there. That's your perspective, the way you speak about a certain topic. For example, Raquel and Natasha can have the same topic, but they are going to talk about different things. So it doesn't matter that you choose the same topic, you will have a very different perspective. The other way could be through language. Language is not only vocabulary, but it could be tone, rhythm, and intimacy. It's the way you speak. Like when you have a friend, and even without word, you're like, and that means we are living. So that's the language that you have specifically with your friend or with your partner or with someone special, that only you and this person understand the language. And also you can create that in your story. And the reader will go through that universe and understand that. And that's amazing. Another thing could be atmosphere, is the emotional field that surrounds your narrative, the way the reader feels when I read you, and which elements you use to create that. The lights, the sounds, the way the things are in a room create an atmosphere. Other thing are the obsessions. Sometimes people think it's bad to have obsessions, but in writing it's good because what obsesses you, what captivates you, it's what you know, what you experience, what you believe, what you feel. And through that, you can make the other person feel that as well. Maybe someone had an experience the same as me, but everybody has felt rejected one time in his life. So we can connect through that. The other thing could be memory, what you remember and how you remember. This is very important, how you remember things. Because maybe Elsie and I went through the same situation, but we're going to remember different things. And even in the same family, we can go through a situation and we will have different ideas of what happened there. So that's amazing how we can use memory to create and not necessarily to replicate what happened, but what I felt. And that's what's important to tell. Another one that's very important is the body, how the body exists in your writing because the body has memory. Sometimes you don't know, you don't remember all the things, but you remember that you felt tension in your body. And through that, you can create a communication from the characters. So that's very important. Other thing could be conflict. What is always at stake in your stories, in your plots, and how you communicate that, the way you represent that conflict in the story, and how it repeats could be a way of finding a narrative universe. For example, in a story, always the character are fighting for something. And that fighting is my conflict that I repeat in different stories. And another one could be silence. Silence gives shape to a universe as much as words do. So sometimes we don't say anything, but something is happening. And that is not named is sometimes more important than what we said through the words. So those are like many ways that you can start finding your universe. You can say, oh, I'm going to pick memory and silence, and I'm going to start investigating through that and see what's happening. But before we start with the prompts, I want to see if there is any questions or comments before we start writing.
I have a question.
Yes?
Would you say that in this universe, it would be helpful to use all of these elements to create like one good story, or are you picking and choosing? Like you don't need to include every single thing that was mentioned, even though it sounds like a very interesting story if you can actually do all of those things. But in a personal narrative, would you say would it be okay to like focus on one or two for your story?
Good question. My recommendation is not to focus in more than three. It's like when you describe something, you don't have to describe every detail of the room, just what matters to tell the story. So, depending of the type of the story that you want to tell, you will choose the best pillar that can help you with that story. Because if not, it's gonna be like full of things, and the reader will be like, which is more interesting, which the writer want to talk to me. So it's better not more than three. That's an amazing question. Thank you, Maciel. Can you put the pillars? Oh, yes, yes, I can do that. Yes, yes. What else? Any other thing that resonates or that you think that you already have in your writing as your universe?
I have a question. So this is we're looking at it like obviously we're going to get a prompt now, but we're looking at this in terms of let's say I want to write a book of essays, of personal essays, right? So this would be a good tool to kind of weave the thread and make it more cohesive throughout the piece, right? Like if I'm looking at this, I think what I'm trying to ask, like this would be a question, the questions to ask myself when I'm building a collection or when I'm revising a collection to make sure that I have these threads weaving through so that it will read more cohesive to my reader. Did I make
Okay.
sense? The
Yes,
question in
yes.
my mind is not coming out.
But I
It's
think I understood.
early.
But the answer would be you need to have that now, even if you're not writing. You need to understand what is my language, what is my perspective, what is my way to connecting, the way I express myself. And then, of course, through writing and practicing, you will find things and you will see, okay, I have something here. What is this? What's my perspective of the world? And then you can, while you be writing and writing, you will make it better. At the beginning, it's like a lot of things that you don't even understand, but other people says like, oh, I like the way you said always this. And you, okay, you take notes of that and you continue creating. So even before writing, those are good questions to explore yourself and to find those answers and then write with that. Okay. And you can use it with essays, novels, short stories, memoirs, anything. Because it's the way you create, it's your own universe. Okay. Great
Okay.
questions.
So it's more like a reflection, a pre-writing reflection.
Yes. A
Okay.
pre-writing and a writing and a
And then a
post-writing.
revision, and then a revision also. Yeah, because we're trying to identify it beforehand, then writing, and then afterwards we're trying to make sure it's standing out in the actual writing what we discovered about ourselves before even writing it.
Exactly, because if you just said one line in a story and then you don't repeat that, the reader will forget that. So you need to repeat throughout the story so the reader can say, okay, fear is something here. And that's what I can take. But if you just name it once, then there's no connection. You need to continue with that. Okay, but we will find out when you start now writing. So let me open up the okay, let me open the timer. Sorry, this is my first time using this timer. I hope everything goes well. Okay, let me open up the prompts. Okay, so the first prompt is the perspective, how you see the world. And perspective is not what happens, but where you stand when it happens. Your narrative universe begins the moment your gaze assigns meaning. So first, you're gonna choose one ordinary moment, a late arrival, me cooking, an unanswered message, a normal situation. And you're gonna write this scene through one emotional lens: waiting, distrust, desire, resentment, tenderness. But do not name the emotion. Let it shade what the narrator notices, assumes, or ignore. So it's gonna be your emotional perspective or that's of that situation. Okay? Does that clear? Yes? Okay. I can find the timer. I'm gonna put it here and I'm gonna ask later Angie how I do that. Okay? So we're starting now. You can choose an emotion that is not there also, okay? Okay, it's up. I will try it again to if I can do it. But the most important thing with this prompt is to find the perspective. And at the beginning, if you don't know exactly what is yours, I recommend always to use emotion because it's not the same to arrive to a place if I'm happy, if I'm frustrated, if I'm mad, I'm gonna look different and focus on different things with my emotion. So that can help find a perspective. Okay. And okay, I did it. We can continue with the next prompt. Mhm. So the second one is language, the way you speak to the reader. And language is how a character reveals their inner world without explaining it. So you're going to write in first person, and your character describes a place they know intimately. It can be a room, a street, a house, a corner, a landscape, but do not describe it objectively. Describe it the way only this character will understand what I was telling you about. And let the language reveal what the place protects, what it remembers, and what it hides. Of course, you would have 1 more minute because I started the timer. So we can start now. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question, Ellie? I'm
Yes,
not 100% sure what you mean by do not describe it objectively. Can you just expand a little bit on that?
of
I'm
course.
sorry to waste
No,
time.
no, it's totally fine. It's like you're not gonna describe there is one window, there is a white wall. You're gonna describe like the feeling of that room, you know?
I got it.
That's not only a window. That was the first place my grandma and I saw a bird, for example.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That
So
helps.
it's
Yeah.
not objectively in the way of the objects are positioned, but
hmm
what happened in those and what
Yeah.
memory you have.
What it
So
represents.
exactly. So when I tell you about this room, I'm not going to talk to you about the windows or how many
hmm
paintings were. I'm going to tell you what my story in that room.
Yep.
Okay? Does that
Thank
help?
you. Absolutely.
You have 2 extra minutes, okay? Okay, so we stop. So I love this exercise because it helps you to get to know better a person. For example, if I decide to go to New York and I talk to Roxanne, I don't want her to take me to the historical touristic places of New York. I want to see New York by Roxanne. So she would take me to the places that she found something special, and she would talk to me about those places in her own way. So it's like this type of connection that we are trying to create. Okay, let's continue with the next one. Okay, so the next one is atmosphere, and basically is the emotional climate of your story. Atmosphere is not only setting, could be mood, tension, silence, expectation, light, sounds, everything that is around that can help to create something, and also the others will feel something through that. So I want you to write a scene where the setting reflects an internal emotional state. For example, let's imagine we have a character who is in a bar, and the bar is full of people laughing and enjoying, but he's in a corner drinking a beer alone. So here we have a contradiction of the emotional state, but that could be used. Or in a normal way, we have a character that is alone and there is silence, nobody's there. We see a painting in the wall almost falling down. And those elements that are in the scene reflect what the character feels or contradicts. You can use it in those ways, okay? Oh my God, this timer is killing me. Now disappear. Sorry, I'm gonna put it here. For next one, I will know exactly. Okay, we start now. Okay. So here is very important to identify like those emotions that and the atmosphere that I usually put on my stories. For example, if I always have like nostalgia or anger, but also how I can do it in so many different ways that the reader is always interested and intrigued and is not like repeating again this atmosphere that I can express. But also to find that you can use as well an emotion. Like I said, like it's not saying the character is sad. Is with all that is said in the story reflects what's the character feeling right now. And that can be even more interest and the reader will be more captivated about what's happening here. For example, in my type of stories, my atmosphere is always like I use an element that is not normal, but in my story, it is completely normal. So at the beginning, the reader is like, but then as everything is said, it's normal. For example, I have a story that a little girl had rats, and the rats are her sisters. And that's normal in my story, and that's my atmosphere. Okay? We continue with the next one. So the next one is about themes and obsessions, and those are not only ideas, they are places the mind returns without permission. Like I always go back to this same obsession. So choose one obsession that keeps returning in your writing or thinking and write as if you are alone with it. Do not turn it into a story. I want to know more thoughts, feelings, um, emotion, experience about this obsession. For example, if I choose love, if love is a theme that I'm obsessed with, I want to you to put out there your thoughts, your fears about love, your experiences with love, everything that comes up. Not to build a story, just to let it out. Okay? And we start now. And also, it can contradict itself. For example, I said I want love, but when love comes, I run. So there's a contradiction, but still is part of my obsession. Okay? Okay. So accession is also another way you can find your universe and your unique voice to tell a story because it's what specifically obsess you about this topic. For example, I have an obsession with fishes, and I have stories where those animals have an interaction, but not necessarily about what a fish specifically do. Is in the story in a about my obsession with those animals, and I represent them. Okay, so this is my obsession, and I have it in different stories in different ways. Okay, we will do one last prompt, and then we will share what happened with the prompts and everything around. Okay, and the last one is memory. It's what you remember and how you remember. And let me get out of here. I want to do it in another way. So I want you to remember a situation, but something specific about that situation. Maybe what you felt, what happened, something specific, not the whole situation. And then you will write it. Okay? Let me set the timer here.
Can you just repeat it one more time, please?
Yeah, yeah. We're going to write from memory. You're going to choose a memory and you're going to choose something specific about that memory. For example, I only going to choose how I felt in that memory, and that's what I'm going to write. Or from that memory, I'm going to choose a conversation I have with my brother, and that's what I'm going to write about. Okay, something specific from that memory.
Can you put the prompt on the screen?
I changed the prompt.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because I want you to choose a memory and something specific from that memory, and then you write about that. For example, I want to write about how I felt in that memory. I want to write about the conversation I had with a person in my memory. Okay, something specific. Okay. So memory is a universe by itself. So I recommend always starting from something specific. And if you share a memory with someone, something interesting that you can do is like talk to this person about this memory and see which things they remember the same as you and which are different. And then you can start exploring those things to find stories, not necessarily to make a memoir or whatever, just to create something new out of that memory, out of that situation, out of that interpretation of that situation. So it gives you a whole universe. Okay, so first I want to listen to your thoughts, questions, and then we can share some work if you want. Okay? Okay. Who wants to share how you felt, what happened, which one you like more or felt more fluent in the writing? Jessica?
First of all, thank you so much. This was very helpful. I felt like crying in multiple places. But I guess that's good because that means I'm really getting some depth here. Um, I approached it in writing a connected piece. So just kind of like trying, like you said, trying to use we did do the only one that didn't really apply was the recurring themes and obsessions, but I tried to use, like you said, use three or more for the same for the same piece to try to really see how you approach it. And I found that some of them obviously came easier, like obviously language, right? The way we write and we speak, that one seems more familiar. Perspective is also I found was my strength. Only because I'm thinking of like how to approach a story. I'm always thinking of that narrative point of view. But some of them I think my biggest struggle was atmosphere in the engaging with the setting, because in a nonfiction, and then the memory kind of helped afterwards. I wish we'd have done that one first, but I feel like I struggled more with atmosphere because I don't really recall how I'm engaging with setting while I'm experiencing something. So I think that is something that I can carry forward as I go along, like trying to the way I'm trying to think of it is like maybe while I'm doing the memory recall, you know how they do like SVU, they'll do like they'll close your eyes and they'll try to guide you to try to remember
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I think that's what I'm going to have to try to do to embrace or
Get
at
into
least
the
interact
memory.
with atmosphere to see, okay, how am I engaging with the surroundings emotionally while in this moment. But I thought the rest of them I did better. And that one's one to work on because I feel like that one I actually enjoy. I just didn't excel at it.
Okay, okay. Amazing. And it's amazing that you also felt something while you were writing because that is what you're gonna give to the reader as well. We have to provoke something. Sometimes it's gonna be uncomfortable, sometimes it's gonna make me cry, sometimes it's gonna make me laugh. That's part of the process. Then I can choose what I want to share, what I don't feel ready for that, and that's okay. And I found interesting what you say about atmosphere because I know it's there. It's just sometimes we think about the element in a way, but it's already there because it's everything you put in place that makes someone feel something, you know? Even the light, the way someone speak. If I can hear yelling at you, you will instantly feel in a way of if I talk like this, let's go, you will feel in another way. So that's atmosphere, you know, but very interesting what you found there. Thank you, Jessica. Roxanne?
Thank you. So my favorite was this one about the recurring obsessions and items. because I have, and it combined with memory, because I have a very specific memory about a conversation with my paternal grandfather that now I'm obsessed with learning more. Um, so, what I'll share a little bit when we're at that point, but yeah, I couldn't do atmosphere either. I got stuck there. But then with the memory piece, I realized I just described the atmosphere. Like based on what you just said a moment ago, I was like, oh, that's what she meant. I described that in element five, because you're kind of trying to set a scene for how the conversation is happening. And I didn't have a close relationship with my grandfather, but this one conversation, it has been stuck in my mind since that day. That was over 30 years ago. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I was really fascinated by this concept of recurring themes and obsessions and how that can actually create the whole story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I love that you also combine. You can do that. You can make a combination, and that'd be amazing. But yes, it could be just a phrase, a word, and
Hmm.
that's your obsession, and that can
Hmm.
create a whole universe in a story. And of course, again, I know like when we think about atmosphere, it's always there. It's always, we just have to be conscious about that so we can use it for what we want to provoke in other people. Okay? Amazing. Thank you. Yes. I would love to listen to your story. Someone else that wants to tell comments, opinions, what happened? For me, creative process is very important. If you're not able to recognize yourself in your creative process, your work is not going to grow. So you're always going to be attentive. What happened to me when I write this thing or when I did this exercise? Because that's the only way you can grow. Okay? Um, okay.
That's
So we was okay, Natalie?
yeah. I was gonna add that in regards to the creative process, like I wanna challenge myself more to kind of like I love how you said you were obsessed with like mice at some point. But like for me, like most of my reflections were like things that I'm very much attached to, if that makes sense, or stories of mine. And so even when I was not writing like in like first person, like the stories were still very like attached to me. So I want to challenge myself to like think more creatively sometimes and not always have it be so, I guess, close to home, if that makes sense.
Okay, okay. That's very interesting. It's like you can take everything you have and also make it grow in a creative way and challenge yourself because of course we need to grow from our obsessions. Like I said, for example, I have an obsession with fish, but if I always talked about this in the same way, my readers will be bored. So I need to get out of that and explore other things and see other people, what other people has done with this topic, so I can see which one I relay, which one I'm different, and find my place. Okay, so yeah, I love that you want to challenge yourself in the process. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so we can start sharing some pieces, not everything, just some paragraph, and then we go to the other person. And I want you all to comment also. Some of you I will pick randomly, so you gotta listen. Okay, who wants to start? Okay, I want to listen more people. Jessica, go ahead. We'll listen to Jessica because I will pick someone random.
Okay. I guess so. You just said one paragraph.
You can two paragraph, could be two or
Okay.
three.
So I'll read memory since that's the I wrote two paragraphs for that one. Eso lo decidiste tú, he writes, as if his lack of a decision wasn't his decision. That's his MO. Leave all the decisions to me. Eso lo decidiste tú, I reply, shoulders slumping as I press the keys to compose the message with both thumbs. I'm weary. Deja vu entering the kitchen and squatting on my chest. We are divorced. Why do I have to do the same old dance? Deciding to change the steps, even though I know it's pointless, I type, si tú quisieras venir, no preguntarías, estuviera de camino. Ever the mature one, he replies, tú fuiste que decidiste? I end the dance. Okay. He knows I have two okays. That one is the one. That one is the one I'm not happy one. I ignore the next message. The dishes need to be washed before my doctor's appointment. My body isn't cooperating. I lean against the kitchen sink, the hot water soaking the air fryer basket, and I'm so tired I could cry. And against every part of me that leans into the strong black woman role that was assigned to me as a child and I've never been able to shake, I was typecast, but I'm damn great at the part. I break down.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, who wants to say something about this piece? This was memory? Memory, okay. What can you perceive in this piece?
There's a conflict.
There's a conflict, yes.
Her and her ex-husband. The setting seems to be the kitchen.
Yeah.
He's not taking responsibility and the decisions fall on her, which is also how it happened when they were married. And she wants to know why. Why is this continuing with the divorce? Why is this continues? I think it's a great moment. I mean, it's very explicit. It's very well explained. And I think the feeling there is exasperation and helplessness, and also the part about I love the way she describes about being typecast as a black woman, and she has not been able to shake off that role.
Yeah. Thank you, Rosita. Very good. Who else want to share some thoughts about it?
I'll share.
Missing. Uh-huh.
I love that she mentioned that it was memory because to me it was recalling a memory, but I really think what really held your piece together was the language that you used. It felt very familiar. Like I may not be in your specific experience, but I love how you use dance instead of saying like I'm tired of going back and forth, right? It's like dance, it takes two people, right? Like it could be messy, especially if you like lose your partner in a metaphoric way. I kind of love how you use that word dance specifically. It kind of gave it a little cliche, and I would even challenge you to continue playing with that of like using dance in some way into this memory. I don't know if you do have a connection with dancing, but it'll be really fun to see you incorporate that in your story. And I really did appreciate that language of like just you speaking directly to the reader of like I'm just exhausted. I think any reader can relate to that in many different levels. So I really love that you chose the language that you chose because it felt like we kind of knew you, like we were friends, and you were kind of just telling us about this moment, even though we may not know you personally.
Yeah. Amazing. Can you see, even if you're not intentionally doing, you bring other elements, other pillars to that because that's your voice. I'm just challenging you to be conscious of that. So, yes, for example, you also said some phrases in Spanish. Eso lo decidiste tú. That one kept with me. And in the way, the rhythm that you had also in the way they were speaking and they were describing. And that's yours. That's only yours. And you can continue growing that work. Yeah, totally. Okay, thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Maciel and Rosita. Another person, another piece, Kim.
Can I share?
Yeah. Totally. We listen
Okay.
again, please, so we can.
Um, I think at the end of the day, I'll read it. um, Recently, I have questioned myself about why no one ever spoke to me about silence. Sudden silence, long silence, and silence where you breathe, a silence to observe, or just silence. Why did nobody speak to me about silence? I got interrupted by the entering, heading back to my home. I look around to see my next seat available, choosing the one next to the door. The question came again, but now I'm putting a name to the question. Why did my mom never speak to me about silence? I remember sitting down in the large table of my abuelo's house, and as well as we all sat down, my abuela in the right corner, my abuelo next to her, me sitting next to my abuelo, and my brother and my mom sitting in front of us on the other side of the table. As the food was served, the silence would come to us, and I always felt something was off. Not because something was bad, but I always thought us together would be the best place to share how my day was, or the random news of today's. But it rarely happened. The silence while eating was always there. The lady next to me looked weird at me because I'm smiling. But if she knew that I was bringing the memory of my abuela's food, my mouth started to craving those delicious plates that no one ever will want to miss. Especially those tamales de frijoles with mole. That was paradise. And in that silence, the flavor of those plates were something that I wanted to share. So I would break the silence and said, Abuelita, esto está delicioso, me encantó. And she would say, qué bueno, mija, and go back to silence. How precious that was, but again, why never tell me about the silence of food? I am sitting down in the chair that looks straight where we met, where we sat, where we talked, where I doubted about kissing you. And it's again the silence that tells me that I'm missing you, the silence of love, the silence that wants to be break by your voice, the silence that needs to hear you saying how much you miss me. The silence that is getting used to be break by me thinking of you. The silence that now is just silence that simply just exists. The silence that hopes to wake up in your arms, because whenever the silence is interrupted in the thoughts of my fantasy thinking of you, is also the same thought that brings me back to reality of knowing that this will never be true. Why did nobody speak to me about the silence of love? That's it.
Wow.
And this is
Okay.
thank you so much
Comment.
because I really challenged myself. Like I never have written about this before.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Some thoughts out of Kim's work, Jessica?
Kim, I love this. I love this. As someone who is obsessed with silence, I want you to write a whole book about this and explore each type of silence in detail. I love how you have a list of different silences and you start with the question, why did no one tell me about the silence? And then it gets specific, like why not my specific loved ones, right? Why not my mom? I love how we repeat it, but it changed, with variance. And the food in silence, like the eating in silence, that's something that I have never experienced. Right? Like we're loud at my tables, and I really loved how you depicted that image and how it wasn't an awkward, like obviously it was awkward to someone who didn't know because they didn't tell you, but that was still communal in its way. It's not something that it was uncomfortable. We hate each other. We're sitting at the table and we hate each other eating. We're breaking bread, and that is enough. And I thought that was beautiful. And I definitely think you could make a whole book on just the different types of silence, and I would eat it up.
Amazing. Roxanne?
I absolutely love this. Thank you for trusting us with it and for feeling safe here to do it. What I really, really loved was all the repetition of the word, right? Silence, silence. It felt very almost poetic. But I also, and I don't even know if you did this on purpose, but you kept saying, why didn't anyone speak to me about silence? And those are opposites, speaking and silence. And I
Mm-hmm.
just thought from like, I don't know, from a literary perspective that was really, really powerful. And also this concept of food and love, right? We love food and we love love. And it's like all this combination. It was really amazing. I would read the book too. Jessica and I will go to your launch, right? It was so good.
Amazing. Yes, I agree. And like Roxanne said, like how you were this repetition. Like I said, if you don't repeat this concept, then the reader won't take it. And also we were intrigued, like what is this silence and how each person of this family represents that silence and what means for the people, the one who's talking about it. Those questions, those situations, it's part of your journey, of your universe. And I think definitely you need to keep exploring on that because there's a lot. And also, like some said in the chat, it was a lot of poetry, in that like silence and in a rhythm that you had in the way you were expressing. Okay. Okay, one last person to share. Greg?
Um, so I really identify with the idea of the silence between the family. They're eating and everything, but there's like a tension there, and you can tell. Now, maybe you're just a kid, so you're looking at it through the point of a child mind, right? But maybe, your mom doesn't get along with her mother, and they're just there like, yeah, we're eating, but yeah, the mom, the first thing somebody says, they're like weaponizing it, so silence becomes like a battleground in and of itself in that element. Like, you as a child just say something and it's innocent, but for them it's like, You're not supposed to be talking."
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So I felt
Silence
that a little bit.
becomes
I
the
don't know.
language. Hmm. Yeah, totally. Thank you, Greg. And it's like that silence becomes a language in families. And specific in Latin American families, there are topics that are like, we don't talk about that in this family. And it's like repeated for all of us. And it's just, we won't talk about this. And in the actions, you can see. And it's interesting, like you said, Greg, from a kid's perspective, like, I don't know what's happening here. But then you grow with that and you need to explore that. Okay. Okay, one last person, Roxanne.
Okay. I am obsessed with the idea of men having multiple families in DR or anywhere for that matter. I have so many questions and curiosities for all parties involved. I'm especially obsessed with this concept as it relates to my father's family, namely my grandfather, his father. The most info I ever got from him was probably the last conversation, and maybe the only real adult conversation I ever had with him, where he recounted how he saw my grandmother and knew he wanted to marry her. But she was only 12, and so he needed to wait until she was 15. Like I said, I have so many questions. My questions of him are lightweight compared to the questions I have for all of these women. My grandmother eventually divorced him when she arrived to this country, but that was decades later. One of his other women never married or had another man in her life ever again after bearing him two kids. One tried to push a second kid on him, but he only claimed one. And then his widow was the daughter of the woman he was living with in New York. He ran away with her to Cali with, she was only 16. They had my aunt, who was about 3 or 4 years older than me. So many questions.
Wow, I believe we all feel identified. But
You
let's
have the
so
next family lore book coming out, okay? And we're gonna also go to your book launch.
what do you think about this obsession of Roxanne's?
I think there were so many layers in there, even as the characters questioning in this piece, the reader is also questioning, but also feel identified. I'm Dominicana, so I can understand. Not that I agree, but I'm familiar with these topics, and there are similar questions. So I would love for you to explore that even further. Even if you don't have solid answers, you could kind of make up this story. Like a lot of times, I think we force ourselves, like Natalie was saying, like we force ourselves, everything that we write has to be true or like has to happen from some sort of perspective. But also give yourself the room to play. Maybe like writing from one of their perspectives of like what happened or like how they viewed him, and maybe how he's viewed from other um members in your family. It'll be really interesting. Like I said, the next family lore book. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, totally. Jessica?
I was gonna say, I'm like, yeah, like Maciel said, we're at the book launch. It's messy, but that's exactly it, right? Because this is something that is such a common occurrence in most of our family, and it's just like there's gonna be people in every family who see it as problematic, and there's gonna be people who be like, well, that's just how it is, that's just how it was, or like there's excuses, and it's like, how do we like cómo convivimos con esa gente, right? Like especially now in an era where like okay, for us it's common to go no contact, but like it's still no, it's not a thing for a lot of our family. Like my mom and I would view this very differently, right? So I think that the nuance that this conversation desire is in your book, Rosana. Like Roseanne, like yes, let us know, and we're there.
Yeah, totally. Raquel, you want to comment on that? Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to say that I also understand it. Once again, I don't agree with it, but I also understand that I'm Dominican. I wanted to share this because it just like I agree to that a lot because um, the book that I want to write, I'm scared to put a lot of things there because I know that my family doesn't see it the way that I see it. It's like, as someone said, like, how do you just like be around these people when you don't see a lot of things in the same way? So it's kind of hard sometimes. I'm totally going to write that book, so it's gonna be very messy, as someone said. So we are gonna be in the lounge together. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Raquel. But I also love that you put a lot of curiosity in your questions. I felt that curiosity, like I really want to understand why you think like that. Because sometimes when we write, we tend to be judgmental, but I invite you to bring curiosity to everything. Because in that way, you can find truth, you can find more perspective than
It,
than just yours.
Not totally agree. I'm a person that I'm very curious, but the thing is that I'm also like very direct and real, and people tend to take that as disrespectful. Like in Dominican families, if you call out somebody, they're gonna say, "Ah, tú lo que eres una malcriada, que tú que lo otro," and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"No,
Mm-hmm.
yo no soy una malcriada. Tú lo que you are in the ground, and you need to accept it. Like, hello, I'm not gonna be here celebrating and going on with this bullshit again. Like we need to break this cycle and call these things what they need to be called. And we need like to change that.
Totally. I agree. And that's having a perspective of you, of your life, of your work. But I was talking to about Roxanne, what she wrote, and that curiosity. And as writers, we need to have, because sometimes we're going to write other characters that won't think like us. And what's going to happen there? I need another perspective. I need to get out of my mind, of my feeling, of my experience, so I can bring this character to life. So we need to have both a strong perspective, but also release so other can appear and you can understand other people. Because people took decision based on their circumstance that are not now circumstance for us. So it's like at one point, like you said, like call out, but at the same time have compassion for that, as well. It's like a balance, a hard balance in the way, and I understand that. Okay, guys, thank you. This was amazing. I love it. I think I will come in another session. Thank you for opening up with me. I know this is Angie's space, but I love it and meeting you all and the opportunity like to share, to explore, and I invite you to find that universe even uncomfortable for other people, you will find your people that will love the work and you will keep evolving in that. Okay? So thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Ellie. Ellie, before you go, can you put your socials again? I got Ellie Villaman, but I didn't see the other one.
Yeah, Eli Villaman, and the other one is Escribir es hoy.
Okay. Thank you.
Those are
Great to meet
my.
all of you.
Me too. Eli Villaman, Escribir es hoy. You can find me on Instagram. We can keep in
Thank you.
contact.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ah, sí.
Thank you.